On December 5, 1901, Walter Elias Disney was born in a small neighborhood in Chicago. He was one of 5 children of Irish, Canadian, German, and American descent. When Walt was 4 years old, his family moved to Marceline, Missouri, where his artistic talent was sparked by a neighborhood doctor who asked him to draw his horse. Young Walt instantly fell in love with that and intently developed his skills by copying the cartoons in his father's newspaper. At 7 years old, Walt decided to help his struggling family by selling his drawings to neighbors and family friends. At night, he took illustration courses at the Chicago Academy of Fine Arts to broaden his skills. At 16, a shy yet determined Walt Disney dropped out of high school and attempted to join the army in their fight against the Germans, but he was rejected since he was still under the minimum age of 17. Nevertheless, Walt was insistent on joining, and so he tried again, this time enlisting for the Red Cross with a forged birth certificate. He was accepted and soon shipped to France, where he spent the following year driving an ambulance. For all the blood and grisly injuries Walt would face on a daily basis, he found comfort in dreaming up new cartoon characters for his future career as an artist. In his downtime, Walt would give life to his unrelenting imagination by drawing on the side of his ambulance, covering it with cartoons from stern to stern. Some of his work was even published in the Army newspaper. After his time in the Army had ended, Walt Disney returned to Kansas City at 18 years old with the goal of becoming a newspaper artist. His brother, Roy, got him a job at the Pesman Rubin Art Studio, where he met Iwerks, a fellow cartoonist there. Not even a year had passed when a sharp decline in revenue pushed Walt Disney out of the job, the justification being he lacked imagination. This would have discouraged many aspiring artists, but not Walt Disney. With unwavering optimism and the support of his new friend Walt opened his very first business. Together, they formed Iwerks Disney Commercial Artists. Sadly, they failed to attract enough customers and the business went under after only a month. Walt was dismayed, but far from ready to quit on his dream. Walt began to experiment with a different animation technique using a borrowed camera and book. Later on, he tried to convince the ad agency to adopt this new technique, but was unsuccessful. Walt Disney soon decided it was time to quit talking and start doing, so he left the agency and opened his second business. Walt, and a handful of animators would work long hours to produce short cartoons called laughograms. These 7-minute animations of modernized fairy tales were shown at the local theater, attracting enough attention and popularity to keep their business afloat. Although funding soon began to decline, which pushed Walt Disney to work on the story of a live-action girl called Alice exploring an animated Wonderland. Before he could finish it, his company went bankrupt and he was, once again, left with close to nothing. At 22 years old and already with 2 failed business ventures under his belt, Walt felt the only way he would succeed is if he believed in his dream implicitly and unquestionably. He then packed his suitcase, never leaving behind his favorite canned chili, and made the trip to Hollywood. A whole new chapter of his life was about to begin. Walt met up with his brother, Roy, who had just overcome tuberculosis. They pooled their money to set up shop in their uncle's garage in Hollywood.
Disney and Iwerks created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, a character Disney wanted to be peppy, alert, saucy and venturesome, keeping him also neat and trim. 51. In February 1928, Disney hoped to negotiate a larger fee for producing the Oswald series, but found Mintz wanting to reduce the payments. Mintz had also persuaded many of the artists involved to work directly for him, including Harmon, Ising, Carmen Maxwell and Fritz Freleng. Disney also found out that Universal owned the intellectual property rights to Oswald. Mintz threatened to start his own studio and produce the series himself if Disney refused to accept the reductions. Disney declined Mintz's ultimatum and lost most of his animation staff, except Iwerks, who chose to remain with him.
At 27 years old, a disillusioned Walt Disney stared blankly out the window while on a train to Hollywood. Disaster seemed right around the corner for his company, but an idea was forming in his restless mind. Walt dug around for his notepad and fervently sketched his idea on paper. The result was Mortimer the Mouse, later baptized as Mickey by Walt's wife. This character was special. He was more human, adventurous, and hugely optimistic, much like Walt Disney himself. He rushed his rather bad sketch over to who refined Mickey's appearance while Walt worked on defining his character. Mickey Mouse first appeared in Plain Crazy and The Galloping Gaucho, two silent films which failed to find distribution, but Walt was used to failure by now and knew better than to roll over. He and his team decided to integrate synchronized sound into a third short, called Steamboat Willie, with Ub in charge of animation and Walt lending his own voice as Mickey's. The first ever sound cartoon hit the NY Theatre in 1928. It became an instant sensation. The reviews were beyond glowing and plans of Mickey merchandise began to bloom. Soon enough, film studios began to line up with all sorts of deals for Walt. From experience, he never sold the rights to his prized Mickey. Along with his passionate team, Walt formed Disney Studios and went on to create a series of sound cartoons. Gradually, their humorous animations and lovable characters flickered across televisions all over the country. 6 years and many successful animations later, Walt Disney continued to push the limits of animation by announcing his first full-length feature film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Everyone thought it was a terrible idea. His wife and brother tried to talk him out of it, but Walt took out multiple bank loans and spent the next 3 years producing his vision. His very own team thought the film would ruin Disney Studios. Yet Walt Disney persevered, and in 1937, the film became the most successful motion picture of the year. It won dozens of awards and turned enough profit to pay off every bank loan and then some. On one particular Saturday with his daughters, Walt sat on a park bench eating peanuts while his girls played on the merry-go-round. As he watched them, he began to daydream of a place where parents and children could have fun together. His plans for a theme park began to hatch. It would be unlike any other, where people of all ages could explore and revel in fantastical experiences. In 1954, the first Disneyland opened its doors to thousands of the waiting public. Despite the counterfeit tickets and abounding technical difficulties, Disneyland was an instant success and became known as a truly magical place. Now over 50 years old, Walt Disney had finally made his wildest dreams come true. His animation companies were flourishing, his characters were loved by many, and his productions were crossing borders into other countries. He had successfully transformed the entertainment industry and delighted people of all ages with his extraordinary vision. It wasn't long before Walt began plans for a new theme park. Sadly, before construction was complete, his lifelong habit of chain smoking had finally caught up with him. In 1966, Walt Disney passed away from lung cancer. Although his unfinished venture was not lost, his brother Roy continued working on the theme park, which opened in 1971, under the name Walt Disney World.